Hey guys, welcome back. Today we will be covering variables and operations. Here is the homework from our first lesson, so pause and check your work. Before starting the actual lesson, we will quickly go over comments and headers. Headers are usually used to describe what your program is doing or what one of your methods does. So you can do that like it is shown over here in blue. And you can also add comments to specific lines of code to describe what is happening for someone who's reading your program. So if you want to comment, you can do this or you can do this. Comments are ignored by the compiler. So the compiler is what is reading your program and are usually used by the programmer to clarify their code. So it's good to put comments on complicated lines of your code so that you understand what you were thinking at that time when you look back at your program later on. In our last lesson, we explained briefly what variables are. So we have two different types of variables, primitive types and non-primitive types. So the primitive types include byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, and char. So what's the difference between all of these different types of variables? So byte, short, int, and long all store whole numbers, but each has a different size. So the larger the size, the larger the number that they can store. So these ones are 1, 2, 4, and 8 bytes in size respectively. You can also use floats and doubles, and these can store fractional numbers or decimals, and float has 4 bytes and double has 8 bytes. Booleans store whether something is true or false, and a char stores a single character or a letter. However, we will be only using int, double, boolean, and char since they're the most useful ones for simple programs. Non-primitive types include string, array, class, and interfaces. Today we'll be talking more about what strings are. So strings in Java can store a sequence of characters such as ABC, so you can store words or sentences in them. For example, you can write string A equals hello and then print that out. And if you want to input a string, you can do string name equals the name of your scanner dot next. That will input only one word. Or you can do string name equals sc dot next line, and that will input the entire line. So you can use that if you want to input sentences. So using these variables, you can do a lot of different types of operations. Java follows the order of operations BEDMAS or PEDMAS. So for those of you who weren't listening in math class, that means brackets, and then exponents, and then division or multiplication in the order that they occur, and then addition or subtraction in the order that they occur. And you can do the basic math operations in Java using these symbols. So addition is the plus symbol, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And there's also shortcuts to make it easier to do these operations. So if you look over here, you can do number plus equals 6, and that's the same as saying number equals number plus 6. Both of them add 6 to the value that you had before. So let's go to Eclipse and write a program that does these operations. So first I'm going to import java.util.scanner, which lets us input things from the user, and then we have to create our main method. And then in our main method we can create our scanner. So scanner, let's name it sc, is equal to new scanner system.in. Alright, so let's write a program where you can enter your name and your age, and let's do some operations on your age. So let's output a message to the user saying, what's your name? And then after we get that, we can store that in a string since it has characters in it, and we'll call it name. And we can do .next if we're gonna input only their first name, but it's better to input their full name if they're going to enter more than one word. So that would be sc.nextLine, and then we can output system.out.println, and we can ask them for their age. So how old are you? Then since their age will be a number, we can store it in an integer. So int age equals sc dot next int. So now that we have their name stored and their age stored, we can do some fun stuff with the age. So we can do age equals age plus 2 to see how old they're going to be in 2 years, or to make it shorter, we can just do age plus equals 2. Alright, and then we can output this. So when you want to output it, you can just write out a simple message. So in 2 years, you will be, and then we will leave a space, and then we enter their age that we calculated, and then we write years old with a space before it. Alright, and then when we run this program, it will ask us, well, what's your name? And we can write code hacks. Yay. And then how old are you? Let's say 1. So in 2 years, you will be 3 years old. Alright, we can do some other fun stuff. So let's just see how order of operations works. So what would happen if I said age equals age plus 2 divided by 2? So when someone's writing this, they might be like, okay, it'll add 2 to my age and then it will divide it. But this is what will actually happen. So once you enter your name and you enter how old you are, it'll say 2. Well, that's strange because 1 plus 2 is 3 and 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. Why is it saying 2? Well, that's because it does division before addition. So if you did want to add 2 and then divide by 2, you would have to add brackets. Alright, now that we know how order of operations works, let's do one other interesting thing. So the line that we wrote before added 1 to our age, but if we want to write adding 1 in a simpler way, we can just say age plus plus. And then when we print out our age, it'll ask, what is your name? Code hacks. How old are you? 1. And it'll add 1 to it. You can also do this with subtraction, so age minus minus. So what is your name? Code hacks. How old are you? 1. And then it'll say 0. Another useful operation is the modulo operator. So what it does is that when you divide two numbers, it'll return the remainder to you. So let's say you input a number and then you want to see, well, when I divide this number by 5, what will be the remainder? And that's what this will do. And the shortcut for it is shown over here. So you can also use the Java math class to do some more math operations. So you can do powers or you can do square root, and there's a lot of different methods in the Java math class, and we'll include a link in the description so that you can take a look at them if you want to use them in your program. So let's write another program. Let's create a new class to try out all of these math operations. And we'll repeat all the same processes that we did before. So import java.util.scanner and create your main method. And string args. All right. And then you can create your scanner. So scanner sc equals new scanner system.in. And then we can try out some of these operations. Okay, so let's first see how the modulus operation works. So let's input a number. Then once you have your number, you can do the modulus operation. And then we can store that in another variable if we want to. And then we can output it. Alright. So let's enter a number 10 and we'll return 0 to us because 10 divided by 2 gives you 5 and it doesn't have any remainder. But what if we entered, let's say, 9? It'll return 1 since 9 divided by 2 is like 8 divided by 2, which is 4 with a remainder of 1. So this is really useful for seeing whether a number is odd or even. Let's try out some of the math operations as well. So we have inputted our number, and let's see what this number would be if we do it to the power of 4. So math.pow, and then we have our number to the power of 3. And then we can output it. Oh, there's an error. So let's see what this error says. It says that we can't convert from a double to an integer. So the reason for that is that the math.power method accepts 2 doubles, but our number is actually an integer. So let's change that to double. We can enter our number. So our number is 3. 3 to the power of 3 is 27. And as you can see, it ends with .0, and that's because the value that that method is returning is a double, so it will have decimals. We can also see what the square root of a number will be. So square root of our number, that will be a double, equals math dot square root of our number. All right, so when we run this program, we can enter our number, 3 again. So, oh, we output it the wrong one. So it outputs the number, and we do system.out.println the square root number that we did, and then we'll see what will happen. So we enter our number 3, 3 to the power of 3 is 27, and it takes the square root of 27 for us. So let's see what will happen if we actually stored this in an integer. So when we want to run our program, it wouldn't let us because there's actually an error, and this has to be returned in a double value. So keep that in mind when you're using the math methods, and make sure to see what types they're returning. So for this week, you can try out inputting 2 numbers and then performing all the operations that we've taught you today with these 2 numbers, and then outputting them to the user. Thank you for watching our second lesson. Subscribe to be updated on our weekly lessons.